Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Elizabeth Bennett, international speaker, president, and CEO of Elizabeth Bennett Group. She helps parents navigate the world of teenager, and we'll be talking about that. She has over 35 years of teaching, administration, and coaching experience, and now she offers a unique blend of leadership, vision, and vast knowledge background. She is a former award-winning principal who has a relentless passion for empowering people to take on their lives with joy and love. And she is dedicated to sharing her desire to create positive and connected relationships, focusing on community and business leaders, educators, and especially parents. And that is where we will get to understand from you, Elizabeth, how you are helping parents navigate the world of teenager. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thanks, AJ. Thank you for having me today. I'm delighted to be here with you.
You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure a lot of youngsters will benefit, a lot of parents will benefit from what we are talking about. We are talking about understanding your teenager better. So my first question to you, Elizabeth, is that why is this teenage a challenging period, not only for the teenager herself or himself, but also for the parents? How do we understand this?
Well, from the years of experience that I've had in teaching and administration, I've had kids come to me and say, I don't feel like anybody listens to me. I don't feel like I'm being valued. I don't feel like I even have a purpose. And oftentimes all we do is yell and scream at each other in our home. And then, I go off and hide in my room and play games, or I'm on my phone or whatever. And then I have a similar kind of conversation with parents when they say to me, I don't know how to connect with my child. I don't know what to say. All we do is yell and scream at each other, and it's very frustrating. And I'm afraid I'm going to lose them. And what do I do about that? So there's a huge chasm. And what I want to do is be the bridge to get to eliminate that gap so that parents and their children understand each other. And that's why I chose to call it Courageous Conversations, because oftentimes what we need to do is step out of our comfort zone to be able to have those conversations with each other.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. So it's a nice thing to have courageous conversations, but I am wanting to understand for a lot of people across different cultures, is that the relationship between parent and child is so special, so full of love. Why does so much of courage is required to talk to one another? Why it can't be a very loving conversation, very open conversation? What is it that suddenly develops that changes the whole nature of relationship, and it all leads to yelling and not gelling well?
Well, I think part of it is that by the time kids are teenagers, they think they know everything, and that parents couldn't possibly understand what's going on for them. But here's where here's where I see part of the challenge. Bullying is rampant. Mental health concerns are through the roof. Social isolation, as wonderful as this item is that we carry every day to gather information, it's also a place of social isolation, because we think that if we dive into our phone, that virtual perfect world is going to be the place where we're going to get our answers, and not with our parents. And in Canada and the United States right now, suicide is the second cause of death of teens. So we need to be doing something differently about that. And part of that is that I've heard the voice of teenagers, and I want for them to know that their voice matters. And so when I talk about courageous conversations, I'm talking about the whole idea of, first of all, being able to listen to where they come from. Because oftentimes, as parents, as educators, as teachers, we're busy with giving the solution right away. You go to say something and I already have 6 solutions for you. Whereas I need to be able to step back as a parent and be able to listen first and understand where my teenager is coming from, understand their perspective without judgment. And that's a place that's really a delicate balance for parents, because they don't want their child to hurt. They think that they know enough to be able to save them. And sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it really is just about listening.
Right, right, Elizabeth. If I understand it correctly, there has always been this generation gap that, new generation will think that, okay, they know better things. They know about things better, about technology better, about other things, and they think that they have also grown up, and which is fair, but they have not grown so much. Then parents think, okay, they are still their children and they need so much of protection, that security,
Yep.
and that has been there. Why is it that that it has grown very different in today's time? Is it just the phone? Is it just the times we are living in? Because there is so much of mental issues also now getting connected with this. The word suicide was earlier also was there, but not that perhaps at this
Right.
rate. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you know the numbers better. So what is it that has changed? What it is that needs to be changed? Because that communication should not break at any stage. Communication is the key, and
Mhm.
and that is not only for the parents or the teenager at that point in time. It's such a great relationship. If there is a breakdown at that point in time, both the parties may carry those bad memories of that situation for a long time deep into their lives, and that is very unfortunate. So this is not just going to be one courageous conversation, but conversation about the whole life itself, the relationship between the parents and their children itself. So help us understand in this backdrop several things at the same time. They're so interrelated, Elizabeth, but you are the master. I thought, why not put them together so that you can answer them at your own pace?
Okay, so lots of what you're saying is absolutely true, AJ. We need to understand that we all have a background. And I always point back here because I think, oh, that's my experience from the past. That's my lifestyle. That's where I grew up. But oftentimes, those experiences, although we think we have them managed as adults, particularly, and we think, oh, well, that was something that happened in the past. I learned from that. I won't do it again. But here's what happens: we have what I call a filter that shows up in the way we speak, in the way we hear, in the way we listen with people, and in the way we show up for people. And that filter is based on our experience in the past. And our children have them as well. So they have filters in the way that they listen to you, in the way that they hear you, in the way that they speak to you. So if they think that the only way they're hearing you is because you're yelling at them all the time, or you raise your voice, or you're frustrated with them all the time, that's how they expect for you to show up. And so they don't have any other way other than that feeling of, well, if you're going to yell at me, I'm going to yell back. Or if you're going to yell at me, I'm going to leave. So we need to be able to take responsibility for how we are in the conversation and how we respond to what's going on. You see, teenagers, they have lots going on that seems to have evolved through the years. Kids are going to school now and they're wondering whether they're wearing the right shoes, whether they're wearing the right clothes, whether their hair is the right color of the moment, whether they have the right cell phone, whether they have friends or they don't have friends, or what's going on in school. Are they keeping up with their studies? What's happening at home? Like, all of those things are going on all the time. And that's in their brain. And they're trying to manage through that. And with each of those things that they're worried about or thinking about come emotions. And when they don't have the skills or the strategies to be able to separate them and think that things aren't as difficult as they are, because in their emotional state, each one of those things is huge. Now, for you and I, like my mother used to say, oh, don't worry about it, dear. Just go to school, just enjoy the day, do your work, and things will be okay. But what she didn't know was a number of things that were happening at school that I couldn't control and I didn't know how. And I also didn't know how to speak with her about them because I was also hearing things at home that weren't always the most positive. So it gives you a place of lacking security or lacking the feeling of trust or the feeling that it's going to be okay if I share this. And so, their kids are worried about, if I say this, what's going to happen? How are my parents going to respond? Right. So they're already worried, and that those worries are huge for them. And so in those courageous conversations, it's an opportunity for parents to say, tell me what's going on. I've noticed that, you're not seeing your friends, or that you're always hiding in your room, or, you know what, I just want to be able to have a conversation with you. And I don't know how to do that because as parents think that they need to know everything, and they don't need to know everything. They just need to step out a little bit of their comfort zone and say, you know what, I I notice that from time to time, I get frustrated and I yell at you and I want you to do something. And when I tell you to do something or ask you to do it, and it takes 4 or 5 times for you to do that, it's frustrating for me. And I can bet that it must be frustrating for you to hear me nag you. So, what can we do differently together so that we don't have this argument all the time? And that takes a lot of courage for the parent to step into that space. And it takes a lot of courage for the child to trust that that is going to be a shift in conversation. And like you said before, it's not a one time, all of a sudden we're magically having conversation. This takes a lot of time and a lot of practice because it's something different and new.
Right, right, Elizabeth. So, you have mentioned quite a few things here. In a nutshell, if I want to ask you for, say, a to do list for both sides, parents as well as the teenager, what would you like to add to those you have already added, or want to re emphasize as to what should parents do? Also, what can teenagers do so that there is a better understanding of both sides through both sides themselves?
Okay, so the first thing is for both sides to be able to understand the other person. And that means really, I call it dedicated listening. So I have 5 strategies for dedicated listening, and I know we don't have time for all of them today, but I'm going to share with
No.
you
Yeah.
being able to understand versus judgment. So for the teenager to understand what's going on from their parents' perspective. And that's part of what I help them, what I coach them through as well, is to be able to understand your background, the things that have happened in your life, the expectations that have been placed on you from your own parents, and the expectations from what we call society for you to be in a certain way. So teenagers need to understand that part too. Parents need to understand what's going on for their teenager, and to be able to really be curiously engaged and ask questions that where you need to put on your detective hat and say, so tell me a little bit more about that. Like, I don't understand why you get so upset about this. Help me to understand. And moving away the judgment for both of them. Don't come up with your solutions right away, but really sit and have that conversation and inquire into what's going on. The second thing that I really encourage parents to do is what I call, it's a strategy that I use that's called intentional time. And that means that you need to put this away. You need to turn off your computer. You need to turn off your multitasking things that we think we can all do so well. We need to put all of that away, including turning off the television, whatever devices, and be able to just have that time, that intentional time, that you're being with your child. And I encourage parents, particularly if they have more than one child, to do that with one child at a time. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to be an all day activity. It could be 15, 20 minutes, an hour, or you could take them to a restaurant or go out for a drink or go for a walk in the park, whatever that is. But it needs to be time that you're just spending with that child. And because it might be something new for you to try, you need to have patience with it, because it's not going to be instantly your child is going to speak to you, because that doesn't happen normally. Some parents have indicated to me after we've had this conversation that sometimes what they do is they have those lovely conversations in the car because they're close enough and they're far enough away from each other. And it's not about, my father used to always say, look at me when you're speaking to me. It's not about that. It's about really listening and being intentional. And sometimes with that, I give parents a suggestion to talk about something that's away from the child first, rather than saying, so tell me what's going on with you. Talk about a current event, maybe something you've heard on a podcast, or something you've read in an article, or you've seen on the news, or so on, and ask them what their opinion is of that, so that you can at least listen and understand, again, without judgment, because they might think of that idea or concern with a different perspective from yours. And then you can say to them, wow, tell me more about that perspective. I didn't think of it from that standpoint, right? Rather than saying, no, that doesn't work. Give them an opportunity to have their own brain power working. If you're
Right.
going to introduce that and you're going to have that as a conversation piece, then take the time to listen. And the third
Absolutely.
thing that I normally tell people is go outside and have some fun together. Go for a bike ride, go for a walk, go for a hike. Do something where you're enjoying each other's company.
Right, right. What about the teenager? Specifically, here in this case, okay, the parents would take the initiative. What about the teenagers? What initiative they can take so that they are able to, understand the situation better, and their parents also can understand, okay, the teenager is rightly growing up and understands this part of communication good. Sometimes, parents can also be, a bit more introvert, or they have their own way of looking. Maybe the relationship between both the parents is not at a great situation
Mhm.
at that point in time. So they are dealing with those issues. So how can teenager also be a strong participant in this communication?
They can also do those strategies together. So it's important for them to be able to understand where their parents are coming from too, and to be able to say, as a teenager, you know, we don't talk that often, and I really have something that I want to share with you, because that connection, even early on, I mean, I chose teenagers because I really love them. I like their piss and vinegar attitude. I like their defiance. I like that, all the stuff that parents hate. I like all those things because they're fun to work with. But having said that, though, the teenagers want to be able to have those conversations too. But these skills that I share with parents, your child could be 5 or they could be 55, because that I'm writing a book right now called Courageous Conversations in the Workplace, because that's
Right.
another place that's not working particularly well. But with those conversations that we have with our children, if we start those conversations early in their life, then they're more likely to want to bring the bigger issues to their parents. Because if they know and they trust and their experience has been that their parents have listened to them, then if something major happens, let's say if somebody wants them to do drugs, or they're going to a party and they don't know whether they should have a drink, or things are happening at school that they've heard about somebody thinking about committing suicide or hurting themselves or so on. If they want that direction from their parents, they need to have already started those conversations. So it's important. And that's why I encourage teenagers to be able to have those conversations with their parents. And for them too, it's a matter of vulnerability. It's about stepping out of their own comfort zone or their protective place, because most often teenagers have been trying to figure it out by themselves, and they don't realize in some cases that their parent might not necessarily have the answer, but they might be supportive enough to take them to find an answer. So that might mean, if the situation is beyond what a parent is capable of doing by themselves, they might say, well, let's look this up. Let's get some additional information. Let's go and see a counselor, or let's do something together. Because the stress and the heaviness of parenting as well can be quite daunting. And when parents sometimes are comparing themselves to somebody else, what's my neighbor going to say if my child is having a problem? It shouldn't be about that. This is your family, to be able for you to say, let's do something together about this.
Right, right, Elizabeth. Here, in terms of both the parents, is that what should be the role of the man and the mom or dad? Is it they should approach it together, or is there a specific role for them when they are dealing with their teenager?
Sometimes it depends. I mean, sometimes the parent, the father is the one who seems to have that connection with their child. This is not a comparative thing. This is not, oh, only go and see your father, or only go and see your mother. But there needs to be some connectedness with all of the family, so that the kids feel safe and that they can go to either parent, and the parents feel safe to be able to share with each other. Because oftentimes, and it's been my experience, oftentimes with men thinking, they can't show emotion, or they're not supposed to be a certain way. And we can't be in that place anymore. We can't. Everybody should have the right to have emotions, to be able to share them, because as the parents, you're the model for your children. So if they see the mother maybe always shutting down or not being responsive, and the father is the only one taking care of it, then that's a mixed message that the teenager is getting, or the younger children are getting. So there needs to be a place where that those courageous conversations are happening within the family too, so that the parents have that opportunity to share. Because sometimes they've come from a space in their background where it hasn't been easy for them to have conversation, or they've been shut down. So it really is conversation and experience and patience and trying new things that also can happen within the family or the adult piece.
Absolutely, absolutely. Courageous conversations within the family,
That's right.
Elizabeth. But when we talk about communication, then even in our society, you see the mental health issues in workplace, and even in some certain cases, suicides in workplace related
Yeah.
issues. That is a problem, and that is where you are writing that book called Courageous Conversations in the Workplace. Help us, what is in that book? Who is this for? Though the name suggests, but I want to understand from you for the audience. And when
Excuse me.
is it already out, or when is it coming out?
No, this is the next one. I'm currently writing it. I'm hoping for it to be launched either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And really, and in the meantime, I'm having conversations in workplaces with people. The book really, it's hard to narrow it down so much, but I'm looking at leaders in the workplace first, so managers and owners of small businesses and so on. Excuse me, because they need to understand that although they want their bottom line to increase, there needs to be value placed on the people that are working there. And oftentimes the frontline workers aren't valued for their the work. And this is not where we, give them big stars on their chest to say, wow, you've done a great job, but really to understand and to listen. And the strategies for dedicated listening are the same: to understand first where someone else is, and then to be able to say, okay, so how can we work together? And it's not about being a therapist at work, but it's about valuing the people that you work with, because we know that over 50% of the population hate the job they're doing, and they're in it because they have to support their family. But why can't we create a space where they feel valued in their workplace, where they are part of the contribution to make things work? Because if that's what happens, then obviously the bottom line will increase. But what we're seeing is absenteeism is through the roof. Mental health concerns with employees is through the roof. And we need to be able to do something in order for people to be valued, to be participants in their workplace, to be able to collaborate, to be able to know that there's a possibility for them to be promoted or to be like really valued in what they do. Because we're all human beings and we all have a purpose and we all have a place where we can contribute. And so why can't we have that in an open space within our workplace?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is much to learn from you,
Yes.
Elizabeth, and the world needs to learn so much about these things, and you are also there from they can learn from. So those people who want to know more about you, learn more about you, how can they do that? And secondly, those who want to get professionally engaged with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, they can book a call with me on courageousnetwork.com. I have my book is available through my website. Booking a call with me, that way we can have more conversation together and I can help to create a package for a family.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure with these courageous conversations, there will be much more love that will spread all around, be it at
Well,
home
that's my
or
hope.
even in home. Yes, yes. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ.